Morning everybody, it's Rob, Yoga Dad, and welcome to a new week, a second week of morning stretch classes here on Facebook Live. 15-minute sequences just to really start your day with that feel-good factor. And hopefully just really give you that sensation, I suppose, of what it feels like to have a really big morning stretch as you get out of bed each day. Now this week's sequences are going to take some inspiration from this book. So this is the Little Book of Yoga Practices, and this is written by Rachel Scott, $13.99 on Amazon at the moment. And I'm finding this really useful just for some kind of small pocket-sized sequences, everything from like 1 minute to about 10 to 15-minute sequences, either focus on different times of the day, which is great obviously for the morning practice, but also different parts of the body, and even for some of the desk relief stuff that we did last week when we were doing the chair-based sequences. Now, as you'll have seen, I am on the floor this morning, so I've taken away the cheap IKEA stool, and we're going to focus on a floor-based sequence this morning. The nearest we'll go to being standing is kind of about hip height. So just find yourself a comfortable space on the floor, and then we'll get started. Okay, so we're going to just start by laying ourselves down on the floor. Now, if you've only just got out of bed, or even if you're still in bed, you might find this is a very familiar position to be in. And as we lie ourselves down, we just bend our knees and we just walk our feet out just so that they're a little bit wider than the hips, and we just knock our knees together. Now taking our palms down either side of the body, palms facing up towards the ceiling, and just lifting our chin, just tucking it in towards the chest. We lift the back of the head just to create a little bit more space along the back of the neck and along the length of the spine. And as we start today's morning practice, morning stretch, we just settle into the ground that's beneath us. Really feeling where that contact comes from along the body, onto the floor, and the support that that floor can then provide to the body as we rest down. Just taking a moment just to scan the body, seeing how it feels this morning. Are there any aches or tensions in the body that you're experiencing? How are your energy levels this morning? I know that for me, the boys have been particularly frantic, hectic this morning. So already I feel like my energy levels are a bit depleted. So this is really beneficial to me as much as yourselves and anybody else that's watching today. Now bring some attention to the breath. And really feeling each time you breathe in, the body almost lifting up, levitating off the ground. So it feels that little bit lighter. And then each time you breathe out, the body melting down, sinking down towards the floor. Just that little bit heavier. And just taking 3 or 4 more breaths, lengthening and deepening the breath as far as feels comfortable to you. But also enjoying that space between each breath as you breathe in and out. Okay, slowly opening the eyes, nice soft gaze. And just separating the knees now away from one another. Still keeping the palms alongside the body, almost like a V shape, away from the body. And we'll just slowly start lowering the knees down to one side and then to the other. And just taking this in your own time, almost like a pendulum motion with the legs. And as you do so, just really feeling that opening across either hip, but also the benefit of that lateral movement for the spine from this twist. And the space that then creates across the body. And the means by which we can kind of direct the breath into that space that's created. I'm just doing that for a couple more on either side. Maybe even shifting the gaze in the opposite direction to the knees. Really feeling as though you're flowing across either side like a wave. And knees back to the centre again. And we'll just roll over onto one side. It's almost as though we're getting up out of bed now this morning. We bring ourselves up into an all fours position. Okay? So just step into the middle. Now we're going to start actually with our hands clasped. Hands clasped and elbows underneath the shoulders. Okay? Walking the knees back, so a little bit further away from the hips, just to create a little bit more space across the hips. Now we're going to just start rotating in one direction. So lowering one hip down to the floor, pelvis then across the floor and then over to the opposite side. And then taking the hips back towards the heels. And then continuing in one direction. For a few rotations, really working into any aches or tension you might be experiencing across the lower back. Limitations of space across the hips. And integrating the breath through the movement again. We rotate around in the opposite direction. Maybe inhaling as you lift up. And exhaling back down. And just walk my legs back in a bit more. So you might find there's just a bit more space across the hips as you work through these rotations. So feel free just to move the body in any way that feels good to you. And just go nice and slowly with this movement. And once more in this direction. And then we bring ourselves back into an all fours. So knees now back underneath the hips. Palms out to shoulder distance apart. Okay, so we're in this tabletop position. This is a great pose to find if at any point the kind of sequence starts becoming quite strenuous and you're feeling fatigued. Just taking yourself back down into an all fours position. Okay. So out to shoulder distance apart, really feel that pressing down through the palms, lifting up through the back body, and then we're going to, on an inhale, slowly lifting our head up towards the ceiling, arching our spine, tailbone pointing up. And as we exhale, we press down through the palms, chin to chest, rounding the spine up towards the ceiling, and tailbone tucking under. We do that for about 10 breaths. And again, really feel as though you're going in your own time. Working into the space, the length that's now created along the spine. But also that opening across the chest, between the upper arms. And the mobility that we're creating for the lower back. As the tailbone points towards the ceiling. As we breathe in. And towards the floor. As we breathe out. And again, a nice flowing movement in your own time. As we did last week, starting the movement as you start the inhale, ending the movement as you end the exhale. We'll do one more. Inhaling to lift and look up, arching the spine. Exhaling, chin to chest, rounding the spine, tailbone tucking under. And then back to a neutral position. Okay. Now we're just going to take our palms just a little bit further forward now than the shoulders. And we're going to lower our hips down towards the heels. Okay. So really feeling that length now all the way along the arms. And the upper arms just rotating away. So rotating away from the shoulders. And a great way to do that is just by almost pressing down through the outer edge of the palms. And just allowing those upper arms just to fall away from the shoulders, just to create that little bit more space across the shoulders. Now lowering the forehead down towards the floor, toes tucked under. Now if that feels uncomfortable at all, feel free to cross the forearms over one another and just resting the forehead on the back of the hands, back of the wrists. Now if there's any limitations in terms of space between the upper body and the thighs, then feel free just to take the knees that little bit wider. So you're allowing the upper body just to sink down between the inner thighs. I'm taking my knees back into the centre now. I'll take my arms back out, reaching out in front, and really feel like we're pressing down through the palms now. As we inhale and lift up, taking the shoulders forward again towards the wrists. We press down through the balls of the feet as we exhale and lift our hips up towards the ceiling. And just walking our feet into a position that feels comfortable to us along the full length of the body. So keeping those knees nice and bent as we press the thighs, the upper thighs, up and back towards the back of the room. And maintaining that pressure through all four corners of the palms. And just start lifting one heel and then the other as we lengthen along the back of the legs. Now we inhale, next time we take ourselves forward into a plank position, either with the knees lifted or lowered. We take a couple of breaths here, so inhaling and exhaling. And then when we next exhale, we press back again. So lifting the hips back up towards the ceiling. And again, keeping those knees nice and bent, just working into that length it's creating along the back of the legs. Lifting one heel and then the other. And as you inhale, taking yourself forward again. Shoulders above the wrists, knees lifted or lowered. Tucking the tailbone under just to protect the lower back. And as you exhale, lifting the hips back up towards the ceiling again one final time. Walking those heels out. Starting to feel that length all the way from the heels, all the way back up towards the hip socket. But also the length along the upper body all the way from the hands towards and along the back body towards the hips. Inhaling again as we come back forward again to plank. And this time we'll all lower our knees down towards the floor. Now taking our hips back towards the heels again. Just up. And lowering our upper body back down. And once again, feeling that length now all the way from the fingers along the side body towards the hips as they sink down towards the heels. Either lowering the forehead down, feeling that space across the chest and the shoulders, or crossing the forearms over one another, resting the back of the head. And just taking a couple of breaths here. Really feeling the breath, lifting the body, the upper body away from the thighs, back body towards the ceiling. And each time you breathe out, just sinking down, just creating that little bit more space. You sink down towards the floor. Now untucking the toes, allowing the tops of the feet just to fall flat down on the floor. And just walking yourself back just for a moment. So hips back towards the heels. And just taking the feet, the knees, that little bit wider than the hips. And feel free just to keep the toes tucked under if that feels uncomfortable at all for the top of the feet. Or even use a cushion or something like that to support you between the bum and the heels. Otherwise, toes flat down on the floor. And just again, lowering the upper body forward. And just feeling into that space that we're creating just through the weight of the upper body sinking down. Now if that feels uncomfortable at all for the knees, then again just lifting yourself back up again. Just taking yourselves back into that all fours position if that works better for you. And just now tracing a line of the breath all the way along the spine, along the back body. Each time you breathe in and out. And just taking one more breath. Move slowly. Walk the hands back in between the thighs. And just taking yourself back round towards a comfortable cross-legged position in front of you. Hands now across the knees and just closing the eyes just for a moment. And just be thankful for the fact you've taken this 15 minutes out of your day this morning to prioritise your health and well-being. Seeing how that feels for the body now compared to when you started this morning's stretch. Just tuning into those sensations, those feelings, those movements of the breath in the body. The space that's now created. but also the ability to calm the mind. Nice soft gaze, open the eyes again, bringing the hands now into the heart centre, front of the chest. Open the eyes. Thank you for joining me this morning. Hope you've enjoyed this morning stretch. 15 minutes or so just to really get you going for the day. Have a fantastic rest of your day and see you tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. for the next one. Namaste.